Alright guys, welcome to day number 1 of the Black History Month book tour, and today we're going to be discussing Born in Blackness by Howard French. Who is Howard French? He's currently a professor at the Columbia School of Journalism, and he's written 3 critically acclaimed books about African history. First, Born in Blackness, and then he also wrote A Continent for the Taking, which was 2004, and he wrote Second Emancipation, which is about Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first leader of Ghana after they declared independence from Great Britain in the mid-20th century. So, what is Born in Blackness? Well, it's an incredibly comprehensive history of Africa, Africans, the African diaspora, ranging from the mid-15th century, when the Portuguese first enslaved Africans, all the way into the Second World War. Its overall goal is to kind of dispel the idea that Africans are not central to the development of what we would call modern civilization or modern history. He critiques kind of the modern Western scholarship, which places Africans and African people as tangential to kind of the Eurocentric history that we preach and that we learn in school. Specifically, he talks about the idea of the myth of the Negro past, which is basically that Africa was a dark continent, it had no culture, it had no art, it had no civilization, it had no advancements. In fact, 5,000 years before the Portuguese arrived in West Africa, Eurasian traders would marvel at the gold and the wealth and the power and the lavish lifestyle of many African empires. It discusses the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries, but it also, like I said, goes all the way through until really the end of World War II. Where is he talking about in Africa? Well, it's West Africa. It's where the vast majority of enslaved Africans were taken from. Countries known today as Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Angola, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Senegal, the Ivory Coast, and Ghana, just to name a few. So what are the main takeaways of the book? There's 2 that I really want to talk about, especially when we're talking about the start of Black history. Number 1, Africans at the time did not think of themselves as quote-unquote Africans. That was not really a thing, and French talks a lot about that. That sentiment is really important because it kind of dispels a lot of the ideas behind what the original roots of white supremacy are, right? There were a bunch of different communities, different tribes, different ethnic groups that had no idea each other existed. And then secondly, which is really his main point of the book, he talks a lot about capitalism, right? And how capitalism and kind of the free market trade society we live in today, it really has its roots in the transatlantic slave trade. If it wasn't for these enslaved peoples making the hellish journey across the Atlantic, mostly to the Caribbean and South America, a little bit to the American South, there would be no banking, no credit lending. Now I want to end with what French talks about the journey across the Atlantic and how it was truly hell on earth. But in spite of all of that, Black history, as we'll cover throughout the 15 videos, is a story about survival and a story about beauty.